Well, our special guest today, currently National General Secretary of Janata Dal United, Mr. Pavan Varma.
Monetization's intent may have been good, but as it has been said, it was a monumental failure in terms of its implementation. It was a step that took the economy backwards. Currently, the economy is in serious doldrums. The Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog was right that the extent and ramification of the current economic slowdown is, in a sense, if not unprecedented, it's of a great magnitude. Investment has fallen, growth is lagging, there is a liquidity crisis, market sentiment is poor, investor confidence is low, jobs are not being created in the numbers required, and therefore it is essential that this reality is taken into account. The government needs to move away from promises, headline management, to real work on the ground.
Well, our special guest today is a person who has been a diplomat, an ambassador to several countries, an advisor to Chief Minister Nitish Kumar, and a press secretary to the two presidents, a prolific author, currently National General Secretary of Janata Dal United, Mr. Pavan Varma. Now, Pavan Varma is out with his yet another book, which is titled as Chanakya Views, Understanding India's in Transition, which is a compilation of Mr. Varma's essay on range of issues from Ram Mandir to the reservation in private sector. Thanks for joining us and talking to Outlook Money. I would like to ask you that Mr. Modi came into the power for a second term, and Mr. Modi has played a very pivotal role in achieving two unprecedented things. One, in first tenure, he called out himself that demonetization is an unprecedented move. And just after the second term, like many economists and reformists and even the Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog said, that country is reeling under unprecedented economic crisis in the last 70 years. So I want to take your quick comments on these two unprecedented things during the Modi tenure.
Well, certainly demonetization's intent may have been good, but as it has been said, it was a monumental failure in terms of its implementation, and it caused considerable dislocation to the economy. The attempt to try and justify it by some collateral benefits that may have occurred in terms of an increase in digital payments, etc., does not sound convincing, because demonetization's impact in severely dislocating the rhythm of the economy was palpable, it was tangible, it was concrete, it was verifiable. And therefore, in that sense, it was a step that took the economy backwards. Now, we are in a situation where currently the economy is in serious doldrums. Investment has fallen, growth is lagging, there is a liquidity crisis, market sentiment is poor, investor confidence is low, jobs are not being created in the numbers required, and therefore it is essential that this reality is taken into account. The government has come up with some remedial action, but it has to be seen whether they will be enough, or we need evidence of a more substantial structural reform that is required by the economy.
So do you agree with this statement that Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog made, that we are reeling under unprecedented economic crisis in the last 70 years?
I think the Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog was right that the extent and ramification of the current economic slowdown is, in a sense, if not unprecedented, it's of a great magnitude. And therefore, we need to take serious steps to ameliorate the situation.
And sir, you have extensively worked with various governments and diplomacy. I would like to ask you this question: what went wrong in the last 4 5 years of the tenure of the Modi government and the coming tenure that economy has been faltering to such an enormous level?
No, I think that somewhere the government's eye was off the ball. The signs were very clear. Growth was lagging. Market sentiment was falling. There was a liquidity crunch. Jobs were not being created. All of these signs were evident. Yes, there is also an international ramification. There has been a global slowdown. We have the trade war between China and the United States. All of these were casting a dampening influence on global growth, including that of India. Now, these signs were clear, but with the presentation of the budget this year, it appeared that the government had not taken cognizance of these signs and the far more substantial structural reforms that the economy needed. The budget statement was almost a chronology of the so-called achievements of the governments of the past and a so-called vision for the future. Even what a budget should present, concrete facts relating to revenue and expenditure, were difficult to find. And some people felt even the figures did not match. There was a gap of some 1,60,000 crores between revenue and expenditure. So therefore, the government needs to move away from promises, headline management, to real work on the ground. For instance, you say that you will spend 100,000 crores on infrastructure. But where is the money coming from? This year, for instance, or the last year, you have spent between 8 lakhs or 9 lakh crores. It was 100 lakh crores, sorry, let me correct myself. Which means that you are spending on infrastructure, but it is in this vicinity. If this remains the rate at which you spend on infrastructure, in the last 2 years of the next 5 years, you will have to spend 25 lakhs per year, like 25 lakh crores per year on infrastructure. Where is the money going to come from? So, promises should be realistic. Goals should not be stated to make headlines. Expectations should be met. Expectations should not only be raised. These are some of the lessons the government must learn given the current economic situation.
And do you think that this budget was not well thought out? Like, for example, Nirmala Sitharaman proposed hike in surcharge, proposed to hike surcharge that unintentionally was applicable on FPI. Now, recently she rolled that out. That is no more applicable on FPIs. So, do you agree with this
I
statement?
think that the budget initially was a statement, a collation of good intent. It was more a statement of ought. We ought to do this, rather than a statement of is. This is what we are doing. A budget statement this year in particular, with the massive majority with which the BJP came to power, should have, I believe, or at least favorably positioned to undertake much needed structural reforms of the economy. Instead of that, we had a flowery statement of good intent, which did nothing to resolve the basic problems afflicting the economy. And therefore, some of the measures which were announced in the budget, which were obviously ill-conceived, have had to be revised within 2 months of the budget. A slew of reforms. which does show that the original budget, even if that was well intentioned, did not have enough application of mind to understand the consequences of some decisions.
So the Prime Minister Modi made set a very ambitious target that India will achieve $5 trillion economy target by 2025. Do you think that with such a poorly performing indicators would be able to achieve that target?
You see, the whole problem is not the goal of $5 trillion economy. That's a desirable goal. And we would be proud of India if it became. The question is, how do you achieve it? To achieve a $5 trillion economy, you must grow between 12 to 15% annually. Currently, if figures are to be believed, we are growing somewhere in the vicinity of 6%, plus minus 5 or 0.5 or percent. Now, if we are growing at 6% now, we may grow at 8% next year. But in the next 5 years, if we have to become a $5 trillion economy, we will have to grow at 25% annually. Is it a feasible target? That's why I say that economics is not a magic wand. It is good to set goals before the country. It is good to work towards a goal. But those goals must be correlated in some manner to the realistic template of the possibilities of the economy and to take into account current realities.
And sir, according to an article by the print recently, they carried a headline, PM Modi learnt his statecraft from Chanakya. You have extensively studied about Chanakya, you have written your last book, Chanakya's Manifesto, and now this book is also titled as Chanakya's View. Do you think that Modi's style of governance is anywhere closer to Chanakya's principles propounded in Arthashastra?
There are areas in which Prime Minister Modi, I think, reflects some of Chanakya's priorities. One is clarity of thinking. I am not saying the decision that follows that clarity is good or bad. To be decisive, to be clear about the steps forward, and certainly, and I say it as a compliment, Sam, Dam, Dand, Bhed, the four principles which were immortalized by Chanakya, these have been adopted by Mr. Modi and by the BJP and RSS as a whole. To that extent, yes, they reflect certainly Chanakya's will to power. Don't forget that Chanakya in one lifetime had a single-minded goal, which was to unseat Nanda the wicked king, which he did. He groomed another successor to him, Chandragupta, whom he installed on the throne. So he had clarity, he had focus, he had single-mindedness of purpose, and he had a will to power. These are some similarities between Chanakya and the government run by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. However, there are differences also, and they are important. Chanakya was always open on a far greater scale to dissenting opinion. Even in the Arthashastra, he takes on board opinions that differ from him, analyzes them, and then comes to a conclusion. Chanakya believed that it is not necessary only to achieve your goal, but to achieve it as far as possible by greater investment in consensus building, to carry the will of the people along. Chanakya believed that a king who is insensitive to the feelings of the masses, the praja, the citizens of the country, who is not influenced by their priorities, who does not act on the basis of what is good for them, is an inadequate king. But if you take a measure like demonetization, it was done with no consultations. It was an executive act carried out from the top, with the Prime Minister himself making an address to the nation. It caused great deal of economic dislocation. So, therefore, in some respects there are similarities, in others there are differences. But I believe that whether it is this government or a previous government or a future government, Chanakya Niti is extremely important for our democratic polity and especially for foreign policy.
And sir, recently this article went on to add that recently all parliamentarians of BJP were handed a book, which was a compilation of Amit Shah's speech, which suggests that BJP heavily draws principles from 7 principles of Chanakya. Do you agree with this statement? Like whatever.
You see, it is probably something the BJP would like to project, that they have the qualities which Chanakya had. I don't blame them. Any government would like to be seen as following in the footsteps of a remarkable man like Chanakya. I think that Chanakya needs to be understood more, read more, before people seek to appropriate it.
Thank you, Mr. Verma. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.